Hello and welcome to KLM Institute.
Tensions in the Middle East have just taken a serious turn, and this could shake the entire global economy, especially countries like India, China, and even Russia. Iran's parliament has approved the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most important oil routes, after a series of escalating military attacks. It all started when Israel bombed Iranian territory. Iran responded by launching strikes on Israel. Then came the biggest shock. The United States bombed Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, Iran is standing alone, fighting against two of the world's most powerful nations, the USA and Israel. But before we go further, let's understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is, and why it's so important for the world, and especially for India. The Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway that connects the Persian Gulf with the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. It is just about 33 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, but its importance is massive. Around 20% of the world's oil passes through this strait every single day. That's roughly 17 million barrels of oil. Major oil-producing countries like Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, and the UAE rely on this route to export oil to global markets. For India, this strait is extremely important. We import about 80% of our crude oil needs, and a large part of that comes from the Gulf. That oil has to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. If Iran actually shuts down the strait, India's energy security, fuel prices, and even trade flow could be hit hard. This is not just a shipping lane, it's a lifeline for the Indian economy. Now back to the situation. In response to the US strikes, Iranian lawmakers voted to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. If that happens, oil prices could skyrocket globally, and especially hit energy-hungry nations like India and China. Iran has often used the threat of closing the strait during times of tension, but this time, it's much more serious. The final decision will be made by Iran's Supreme National Security Council. But the parliament's approval already sends a powerful message. US officials have warned that closing the strait would be, in their words, economic suicide for Iran, and have urged China to use its influence to stop this move. India, as we mentioned earlier, could be one of the most affected countries. But our Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri has tried to reassure the public. He said India has diversified its oil sources in recent years, and a large portion no longer passes through the strait. He also stated that India has weeks of oil reserves and will increase supplies from other countries if needed. However, this crisis is not only about oil. It affects global trade routes, shipping, and the supply of key materials like fertilizers, chemicals, and industrial goods. Countries like India, China, and Russia, who heavily rely on trade through the Gulf, are watching closely. What's unfolding is no longer just a conflict involving Iran, the US, and Israel. It is slowly becoming a global economic threat. And here's something many are now beginning to understand. These airstrikes on Iran may not only be about stopping its nuclear program. This could also be an indirect message to countries like India, China, and Russia, whose economic lifelines pass through this region. By disrupting oil routes, the economic pressure doesn't just fall on Iran, it spreads across Asia. So, while missiles are flying in the Middle East, the shockwaves are reaching the fuel stations in India, the factories in China, and the ports of Russia. Whether the Strait of Hormuz remains open or not in the coming days could decide how expensive your next fuel bill is, how much your groceries cost, and how stable your country's economy remains. We'll keep watching this closely, and as always, we'll bring you the facts in the simplest way possible. Thanks for tuning in to KLM Institute. Stay informed, and stay safe.